As everybody knows, restriction of movement makes it really hard for the tourism sector up and down the country. And when you've got massive issues like Auckland, where your largest population base is locked down, as well as new lockdowns in Hamilton and around the Waikato, it gets even more complicated. I had a great time sitting down and catching up with Dawson from Hamilton Waikato Tourism. He's somebody who has such an innate knowledge of everything going on within the region and the different ways that people come in and interact with the space and how positively that's been received by people. It was honestly eye-opening for me. As somebody who grew up there was still things that I learned in this conversation. So I really hope you enjoy this talk. It gives you a great bit of insight into that sector and what they're doing to cope with it, but also not forgetting about the people who are involved in that sector and how tough it's been on them as well. So I really do hope that you enjoy this interview. So thank you very much for joining me. You must be having a hell of a couple of months.
It's been a hell of a couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
Tourism's been pretty much reported in the media how decimated the sector is. Our event sector is obviously in limbo again with regards to COVID and impacts. But I would say, this was something that had started to impact the industry long before COVID. We'd already had the Australian bushfires. The bushfires, obviously, we started to see less Australians travelling and more staying home to support their local regions, which is fantastic. And then we had the unfortunate tragic accident at Whakaari White Island, where we saw a lot of cruise passengers decide to actually cancel their New Zealand holidays because they would have thought the whole country was literally under volcanic eruption. So it was really quite devastating what was happening already for our sector. And COVID just kind of was what was the final straw, really. So yes, a definite big impact for our sector.
When COVID sort of first hit, and as a country we sort of locked down our borders, like everybody did, every country did the same thing. How much of a dime turn was that for you in terms of promoting internationally to promoting internally to get people to travel?
Yeah, so regional tourism organisations, which we are one, already work in the domestic market. So domestic is key for Waikato. It already, previous to COVID, we were 75% New Zealanders. So international was definitely a big part of our tourism offering, mainly around Waitomo and Hobbiton and Matamata. But the rest of our region was pretty strong in the domestic space already. We were strong in events, major events, and also strong in the meetings and conference market. So post-COVID, all we've seen is obviously a 99% uptake by domestic New Zealanders to come into the region. So I think we are in a very fortunate position compared to communities like Te Anau, Franz Joseph and Queenstown, who are at least 2 to 3 flights away from the main population, which is a huge barrier to people. So we can flick on a drive market within 20 minutes. And we have 2.65 million people live within the Upper North Island. So we're really central to the main drive market, which is a good space to be.
I suppose as well, you're so close to Auckland that would obviously be your big sort of driver to get people down from here, down there.
Absolutely. Auckland's our number one drive market. Also our number one events market. Our number one conference market. So Auckland is a key strategic stakeholder for us and a key drive market. So because of COVID, we got to do some pretty cool things together. We actually collaborated and partnered with Auckland, and we did a cheeky love this, love that, love thy neighbour campaign, where we wanted to get Aucklanders down into the Waikato and see a little bit about more what they have on their own backyard, as much as we wanted more Hamiltonians and Waikato residents to go to Auckland for the weekend. So I think it's driven a lot more collaboration amongst regions because, again, New Zealand is a very small market and there's only so many times the average Kiwi will go on holiday. So we want to make sure that if people want short breaks, particularly, or a little drive holiday, that Waikato is the place to come to.
Out of curiosity, what's your favourite attraction there?
Oh, goodness, that's like choosing your favourite child. Yeah, my favourite attractions actually is the natural environment of the region because things like the wild west coast of Raglan through to Wairinga or Wairere Falls, we've got some incredible green spaces here. So I would say that's probably my favourite because we're so close to to pretty much bush or wildlife sanctuaries compared to other parts of New Zealand. They're right on our doorstep, as well as many of our, obviously, urban experiences and our built visitor attractions. So, yeah.
A little bit of everything. I was having a look over your website this morning, and the thing that really got me, which I was really impressed with, you don't lead with Hobbiton or the Hamilton Gardens. Is that a deliberate choice?
No, it's not deliberate. Look, they do feature, because look, our three hero attractions that people know us for are definitely Hobbiton movie set, Waitomo Caves, and Hamilton Gardens. Each one of them are literally our top three visitor attractions for internationals and definitely for domestic. So I think for us, it's about getting people to know us for what else we might have here. Like, we do have a lot of unique things and spaces and places that other people don't really know us for, and things like Geelong Tea Estate. It's New Zealand's only tea plantation, 100% organic, right through to Sanctuary Mountain Mangatotiri. It's our largest mainland inland sanctuary, with the world's largest predator-proof fence surrounding a mountain. So again, it's about getting people to know what else has gone on here in Waikato. So, and of course, Raglan is now one of our growing emerging spaces with regards to being more of a surf destination. And then we've got newer communities or destinations like Aotearoa, who have always been known for their spa and for literally taking the healing waters. So it's great to see some of our other lesser known communities get the limelight anyway.
Do you find that those smaller communities, that they're just starting to see the benefits of what tourism can do for them? Has there been a sort of a pullback from them in the past? Because I remember growing up in Parongia, which is obviously a very small little place. Even the idea of trying to talk people into getting visitors there was something that they didn't like. It was very much a not in my backyard kind of thing. So I'm kind of curious, how did those smaller communities come on board to try and drive those tourism dollars?
Yeah, so look, it has to have community buy-in. There needs to be community aspirations for it, because otherwise it's no use trying to create your community as a destination or develop any sort of visitor experiences if the community don't want it. So look, a great example of two towns which traditionally could be on a similar path is Kawhia and Raglan. And Raglan has traditionally been a destination based on its surf. And we did sit down with them 5 years ago and develop with the community it's called a visitor action plan. So it was about aligning the aspirations they have in Raglan naturally plan. So to keep Raglan as it is, we didn't want Raglan to become a Noosa or a Byron Bay. We want it to stay as this, got a cool, happy vibe. It's kind of our eco-coastal sanctuary. We want to protect the harbour. So it's about making sure that whatever visitor experiences that are developed in Raglan actually fit with the ethos of that community. And so, look, it's aligned to the district plan and to the Raglan community plan, which is fantastic. If you look at Kawhia, which again is a very similar sized community just around the hill, Kawhia 5 years ago and even a few years ago, we're not keen on opening the doors, they call it. So Kawhia wants to remain this wild West Coast town that literally you really can disconnect from, and to keep it as it is.
It's really easy because there's next to no cell phone reception there. You can disconnect from everything.
Absolutely. And it's got a lot of significance to Tainui. It's the final landing and resting place for the Tainui Waka. So look, it's not about attracting what we would call hordes of visitors into Kawhia, but it's about keeping Kawhia. So people, if they want to go there, which are mainly domestic visitors, and we did get a few internationals, it's about just basically fitting in with the local environment. So not having a lot of paid tourism activity there, but more looking at people exploring Hot Water Beach, just having fish and chips there, getting a great coffee at the local cafe, shopping at the Four Square, going to the museum, and just keeping Kawhia, because I think that's what actually makes that place quite special, is that it does have this, there and Aotearoa and Kiritihi Beach just have this sense of a wilderness about it, which I think, look, a lot of New Zealanders have discovered post-COVID, because we have seen more Kiwis wanting to go to lesser known places and go off the beaten track. So I think places like Kawhia will benefit from the domestic visitor, which actually, they kind of get the vibe, the culture and the traditions of places like Kawhia, and they just want to fit in and actually experience it for real rather than actually try and change things. So I think it's a really perfect market for kawhia.
The thing that surprises me about the kawhia market is that there is a huge industry there for charter fishing and hunting, which I had no idea about until a little while ago. And you can actually book in a fishing and hunting trip, a surf and turf trip, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And it shows so much ingenuity to be able to take those natural resources that they have and find a way to make them an exciting interactive adventure for people.
Absolutely. And it's also got low impact on the community itself.
Yeah.
So economic, yes, because literally people are paying to experience these great charters and hunting trips. But look, they're not demanding a lot with regards to accommodation, with regards to F&B or hospitality or retail. So they're not trying to change kawhia. All they're doing is they're getting to basically showcase some of their natural assets and even go, beyond the harbour, which is kind of what a lot of those charters do. They go out onto the West Coast, and there aren't many places which are quite accessible out of any of our West Coast harbours. So crossing a lot of the bars can be a treacherous experience. But kawhia, luckily, look, it is an opportunity to get out there and actually experience New Zealand of what it might have been hundreds of years ago.
In terms of the sort of growth that tourism brings to different communities, kawhia, you mentioned, it's got a big hotel being built there at the moment. It's something that one of the local groups, I think, has gotten behind. And
yes, Aotearoa Sea Trust are actually developing it.
That's one. And Te Aroha have a long history of dealing with tourism and travel. They owned, I think it was the Waitomo Caves Hotel.
Yes, yep. They still do.
They still do. I know that they've been diversifying their portfolio a little bit lately with everything that's going on. Out of curiosity, is there weird sort of tourism bits that you didn't realize? Like the Waitomo Hotel, for example, the only interaction I've ever had with it, we were down filming something for National Geographic many years ago, and that's where they stayed. And their whole sales pitch was, come stay with us, we've got ghosts. Is there a whole bunch of sort of underground tourism ideas like that you're aware of that people should know about, that might be a draw card that they're not used to?
Yes, I think, look, that we definitely have these spaces or places which obviously are very unique and have these quirky little stories. And I think, look, all of our towns and communities have somewhere quite special that only the locals know about. So I think, look, the Waitomo Hotel is definitely an example of one. I mean, it was a grand, old, beautiful hotel where you could get silver service and high tea, where the Queen stayed. So, there is a lot of history about the hotel itself. Right through to some, really quirky little spaces. Like we have some, what I would say, off the grid accommodation experiences as well. Some are underground. Some are some beautiful glamping experiences at the top of hills where you are the only glamping site there. You can take a bath outdoors under the stars. You could stay in yurts out at Raglan. There's just lots of cool and quirky places and spaces that we do have here. So I think, look, we are really, really lucky. We are geographically so diverse, from West Coast through to inland lakes and rivers and our mountains. This backdrop obviously is from Mount Te Aroha. So Wairere Falls right through to the Piako Plains. There are so many cool little spaces and places. And what we probably are seeing, is a lot more, not just tourism operators, but F&B, hospitality providers opening spaces in some quirky places as well. So, the old Forge Kitchen out at Te Aroha West, I like to talk about, because it was the old forgery, the old dairy factory that's out there as well, that they've turned into a cafe and an indoor climbing wall.
I didn't realise they've done that out there. That's awesome.
Yeah, so there's heaps of cool spaces where people are actually, offering different experiences. So they're reinventing themselves, which I think is really cool. It gives that sense of history and understanding of where we've come from.
How does something like Airbnb then come into play with building a tourism sector? Because obviously that's had a bit of a boom over the last sort of 10 years or so. Is there a change in the way the sector works around that sort of user-led model for getting people in and staying?
Yes, so look, there's a number of things that Airbnb has done. One, for us, we do have a shortage of quality, large-scale commercial accommodation across the region. So look, Airbnb has kind of filled that gap for us. But what we have seen very much is, look, Raglan, traditionally 50% of our housing stock in Raglan used to be Airbnb listings.
Wow.
And that kind of decimated our short-term renters. It was actually displacing the community. We had a lot of workers out there that had to literally live somewhere like Hamilton and get the bus or drive out there every day because they couldn't afford or find anywhere to live in their own town. So it did have some, what I would say, negative impacts during the peak of tourism season, and we definitely saw that in high growth areas like Queenstown. Due to COVID, we've seen a lot of those Airbnbs being delisted now and being offered as long-term rentals. So we've been able to rebuild what we call our short-term accommodation options for our workers and for community members to live in their own towns where they actually live and work, which is great, or their kids go to school. So I think Airbnb in our coastal communities has helped there by flipping. But what we have also seen is, look, Airbnb is more now than just booking somewhere to stay. Mm-hmm. They offer now local guides, local experiences, whether you're a super host. So look, they've really embraced what I would call the tourism experience mantra, where you are going somewhere not just to stay in a quirky space or place, but the host potentially has offered local produce for you to experience. They provided recommendations, right through to some of them even preparing itineraries or offering a tour. So Airbnb experiences is something that has been quite well taken up, particularly post-COVID. And you can also deliver it virtually, which is what's been fantastic right now. So for those of us who are, border locked, we can still experience some of our great spaces around the world or even here in New Zealand and have a local guide host us virtually. It's just like doing a tour. You pay for you and your friends or your family to do a specific tour. And they will guide you personally. You can ask questions. You can ask them to go to somewhere or look to their left and what's that over there, and they will still talk about it. So it's quite a cool thing and a different platform that we can still deliver visitor experiences online.
So Hamilton has a lot of accommodation, obviously, because it's just the biggest centre there is down there. Some of that accommodation at the moment is being used for social housing. Does that produce a shortage of places for people to stay there, or is there a decent balance going on there that you can see to make sure people who are visiting have accommodation?
Yes, no, look, it's definitely created more of a critical shortage for us. Before COVID even hit about 3 years ago, look, we were ranked 9th in hotel inventory, and we're New Zealand's 4th largest city. So look, we were already constrained. What COVID has done is, look, we have 3 of our hotels now being used as managed isolation facilities. We're returning Kiwis can be processed before they go back to normal life after 14 days isolation. And then a lot of our motels around our entire region are now being used as emergency housing. So look, it has really put an extra pressure on the region as we try and stand up the visitor economy again, try and stand up major events, because people do want to come for 2 or 3 days. If I take field days, people don't just want to go for 1 day, they want to come for 2 to 3 days. So the challenge for them right now is we've had a big day trip market. More people now are unable to stay in our region unless you really book early. But look, peak season, it's going to be interesting. We were about to officially from October and Labour weekend is the beginning of our tourism season and for our major events to kick off. So look, we're hoping that with lockdown lifting, we can bring those events back, but we will see less multi-day stays and probably more day trips, or people are actually not staying, as we've talked about before, in commercial accommodation. They're using Airbnb listings, which kind of fluctuate throughout the city during different times of the year.
You mentioned the conferences, the events, stuff like that tend to happen. And I don't know if people from outside of Hamilton are aware of things like the conference centre in Thornlands, just how amazing that is as a facility for this kind of thing. Have you had any feedback yet from the government about vaccine mandates or certificates and how that's going to work for things like conferencing? For big events like festivals, it's totally understandable, but conferences would obviously be a little bit different.
Yes, so look, we have, obviously we have industry bodies like the Business Events Industry Aotearoa, the New Zealand Event Association and Venues and Venues New Zealand. So we have a number of industry bodies that are working with the government around how to safely meet again. So look, we have been, the conference market probably has been a sector that had already adjusted quite quickly to the new way of working. We are fortunate, like a concert or a festival, we are ticketed events. So people they're not public facing. They're normally industry led conferences where people have already purchased tickets 1 or 2 days. We can manage breakout rooms. And places like Claudelands and Mystery Creek are our largest conference centres. So we have the space, fortunately, indoor and outdoor, for people to actually meet safely with physical distancing, table settings spread out as well, just to keep everyone safe. So I think the conference market is something that can easily adjust. Vaccines will be interesting. I would expect that actually there will be vaccination requirements as much as to go to a summer festival as it would be to go to an exhibition or a public show. Look, you would probably see that with regards to going to a home show or an expo, that they will have the same requirements. And again, it's not just to make sure that that you keep yourself safe, because we do have a lot of anti-vaccination people in our country. It is also about,
if I remember correctly, Hamilton was the last place to elect an anti-vax councillor.
Yes, absolutely. So,
yeah. and
so
I totally
we still have a long way to go
about that. Yeah.
Oh, look, absolutely.
You've got some big events as well down there coming up over summer, like the Hamilton Gardens Festival, for example. I'm guessing that's all going to be vaccine mandates as well. Being a public-facing, mostly free event, or sort of minimal charge event without ticketing for a lot of it, that must be a hell of a mission for the organisers to put together.
Yes, absolutely. So look, we are, I'm also on the Hamilton Gardens Arts Festival Trust. So look, we are following very closely the government guidelines. We are hopeful. So whatever is implemented for festivals will be exactly the same for us, whether you're a ticketed or non-ticketed event. We will just have to manage and track people with regards to controlled entries and exits. So again, even though we do run a number of free events in Hamilton Gardens, the great thing is any event that's held within the enclosed gardens, we do have one entry and exit. So again, we can track and check, and people will have to scan in. They probably will have to wear masks, and eventually we will see whether the vaccination passport will be a requirement. I think we're lucky because our festival is held near the end of February and beginning of March, so we do have that bit of time to see how does Rhythm and Vines and all the other big concerts and festivals operate, that we can learn from as a sector, and then obviously implement for the Gardens Arts Festival. But you're right, we have a big summer calendar of events coming. We have the Cricket Women's World Cup, which also kicks off in February as well. So again, we're going to have a number of games and international teams here. We have Hamilton Gardens Arts Festival. We have a number of summer events that happen. Things like the Kawhia Kai Festival happen around Waitangi weekend. So again, I think we are lucky. Hopefully we can see what others are doing and then make the changes necessary to host people safely again.
Have you had much feedback from the people you work within the sector about the changes in the last couple of days, like lockdowns with borders and how safe they feel with the Hamilton border at the moment with the level changes?
Yeah, look, I think as we've all come to grips with over the last year and a half, is that the government operate what we call a very high trust model. So we are trusting that people are self-isolating, and we are trusting that people will do the right thing and get vaccinated and wear masks when required and scan. However, look, we are operating what's known as a soft border around our Waikato towns and Hamilton City right now. It is really hard to lock down a city like Hamilton. We have a lot of, as has been reported, a lot of feeder roads in and out. Literally, I'm at the north end of the city, and within 500 metres, I'm standing in Waikato district.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about self-monitoring, self-management, and operating a soft border. I think that way it'll just allow us to still continue to operate at alert level 3 safely. And there are going to be people, like any parts of our communities, where they probably will do a breach or two, but we do hope that overall the majority of people will stick within the borders. And again, we also have people that live just outside the city boundaries, where everything is for them here. Their local supermarket, their doctor, their medical, their pharmacies. So again, sometimes they are going to have to come into our city to access those critically important services. and we will do that safely. So I feel that, look, we will see. I think we'll re-look at what happens on Friday. Does the region continue the way we are at alert level 3? Do we go to what I call a 2.5 model, which is kind of what Auckland's got now? So a little bit of freedom, but again, you've got to stay within your region. But again, it'll be
surely
good to
you're
see.
keen to have picnics and yoga in the park with 9 of your friends.
Well, yeah, sure, why not?
Everybody's doing it. It's so much fun. Absolutely.
Good.
Have you got any advice for people who are sort of sitting there and umming and ahhing about the Waikato? I know when I first moved up here, the look I got when I said I'm from Hamilton was one of those where you've obviously never been there kind of things. What are the misconceptions that you feel that you're battling in this role?
I think we have progressed a long way in the last 5 years. Look, we track what we call sentiment of New Zealanders about how they feel about Hamilton and Waikato, as well as locals. And the perceptions have changed significantly over the last 5 years. And we also track what I call Net Promoter Score, where people actually, it's how people look favorably towards a place. So normally it's used for brands, but destinations always do Net Promoter Score tracking as well. And look, we have been in the negatives for years. And in the negatives are people like insurance companies, used car salespeople. Like when you look at the types of people that are actually in the negatives of a Net Promoter Score, they're not a desirable place. For the last 3 to 4 years, we have slowly tracked into the positives. And now we've overtaken, for the last year, Auckland as somewhere that's desirable as a place to visit. So I think, look, Waikato has changed significantly, and Hamilton as well. It's been discovered. I think people are saying we are a uber cool metro. We don't have an issue. Millennials love us, which is fantastic. They're down here queuing normally for Duck Island ice cream.
Yes.
They're getting their Instagrams, in front
I don't
of the big
know
door
anybody who has
garden.
visited Hamilton and not gone to Duck Island.
Absolutely. So look, our food,
amazing.
I would say, has really changed people's perceptions. We've always known we had fantastic hospitality offerings around our region and some of the best restaurants. Now it's our food producers' turn, and they're kind of showcasing what we do have, like Zeelong tea, Good George beer, Duck Island ice cream, Donovan's chocolates. Look, people are really getting to know
3 of those
us
4 here already.
Oh, good. And I hope you have Raglan coconut yogurt as well, because they're another business, because Raglan, particularly now, is becoming quite a foodie hotspot.
I've seen that,
every food producer out of there actually labeling themselves as from Raglan. We have Raglan chocolates, we have Raglan coconut yogurt. We have a number of food producers there that are actually producing local beers or local breads, and actually just showcase that they are proud to be Raglan. So I think, look, food provenance is really helping us, because we've always known we can generate and grow some of the best food in New Zealand, and now the rest of the country is discovering it.
So Hamilton itself has, I think, more cafes per capita than any other city in the country. What is it about Hamilton that drives people to love coffee there?
Well, there's actually probably something I'd like to share around coffee. So I always say that Hamilton is the home of fresh coffee in New Zealand. And that was through our iconic pioneer, Bob Harris, which is obviously known as Robert Harris today. Bob had a delicatessen in Garden Place. He was one of the first New Zealanders to actually import coffee beans. He would roast and blend himself and created fresh coffee for New Zealand. And look, everyone in Hamilton had a desire to drink good coffee. And he had started that revolution already. In the end, he started doing mail order, because people all over New Zealand decided actually there's this guy that actually roasts and blends coffee in New Zealand, and they would order from brown paper bags the Bob Harris coffee. And now it's synonymous. The name has been purchased by robertharris.co, and that company now obviously carry the Robert Harris name. Now, some people might say, well, that's not really a great coffee brand or something to be aligned to, but my thing is he is the founding father of fresh coffee, and it was from Hamilton. So to me,
amazing.
We've always had a coffee and cafe culture here. So we've always been cosmopolitan.
Yes.
But Wellington has always taken that mantle, because they believe they are the coffee capital. And they might be with regards to the number of coffee places. But for us, we've always had a sophisticated palate, and we blended the first fresh coffee beans here. So
it was
Hamilton.
the hardest thing about moving to Auckland was I couldn't find decent coffee. Aucklanders just don't know how to do it properly. They either burn the beans or they overheat the milk, or they can't get the balance right. Like, it's really surprisingly difficult to get it right. If anybody watching this should go to Hamilton just for the coffee. Like, it's totally worth it.
Absolutely.
And you currently have, is it the national barista competition winner there in Grace? Is he still at Grace Street Kitchen?
Yep. That's right. So it's Dove Chen. He's actually won it 3 years in a row.
Wow.
Best barista in New Zealand. So Dove Chen works at Grace Street Kitchen, one of our iconic cafes in Hamilton East. But he also now roasts his own beans. That's cool. Fantastic. So he has also got into coffee roasting, as well as our longest running coffee roaster here, Rocket Coffee, still going strong, where you can also do barista classes and actually learn how to make the best quality coffee at home.
That is amazing. That is, if any of these places want to send me free samples, I'm not going to say no. Like, it sounds absolutely brilliant. In terms of the restaurants that you've got there as well, you've got some amazing eateries there. Like, I don't think people realize just how much quality there is. It's very easy to forget that.
No, it is easy to forget it. Look, we have the most awarded restaurant in regional New Zealand here, which is Palette. Palette, with Chef Matt McLean, has continually wins New Zealand Beef and Lamb Awards. He previously has I think he has 2 hats with regards to the hatted chef system that we have in New Zealand. We've had Chimchurri. Chimchurri was a fantastic, iconic restaurant. Gothenburg, which started on Hood Street, a very small eatery, is now a riverside eatery, open 7 days a week and produces some real authentic Swedish dishes, hence the name Gothenburg as well. And then we have a lot of newer eateries that have come through. Camarosa out at Ruakura now is a fantastic awarded restaurant, plus right through to Mr. Pickles, set up by Matt Pedley in Riverbank Lane. They're still going great guns, and we have a number of other newer, smaller eateries that are just popping up all the time. So it's definitely, we are fortunate. We have some of the best restaurants in New Zealand right here. And we were the first place where a lot of the national chains opened. So Mexico, we were the first Mexico restaurant to open outside of Hamilton, outside of Auckland. We were the first Madam Wu opened by Josh Emmett, and this is his hometown, and that's still going strong. A number of other Madam Wus have now closed, so it's only in Queenstown and with us now. So again, these restaurants just come here and thrive because not only do we have some great local eateries, it's also a great place to set up as well.
Do you think a lot of that comes down to just how good the area is at producing quality food? Obviously, dairy farming industry, so you have a lot of beef and cattle around. Very fertile land, so great for growth. Does that actually feed into the sort of quality that you're getting on the plate?
Oh, look, absolutely. I would say a lot of our restaurants serve what I call a taste of Waikato. You can go to Hayes Common and have, Maya cheese and some good George gin. You could actually, go to River Kitchen, and Maria actually has a beautiful little golden book, which actually is called Flavors of Waikato, and you can actually scroll through the menu like a little golden book and actually taste eggs from different parts of our region, enjoy Zeelong tea. So I think what we see is our eateries also celebrating the provenance of the produce we have and actually really enjoying it. Because not only are we the dairy capital, so we do produce the most milk, butter, cheese, chocolate than any other part of New Zealand, we also are the berry capital of New Zealand as well. So when it comes to pick your owns, whether it be blackberries, strawberries, blueberries in season, we are the berry capital as well. So look, berries feature quite strongly with regards to our production and also what our restaurants and cafes use when they're in season. So go the Waikato.
Yeah, there's a bit of everything. And you've got such beautiful nature walks as well, even within the city, like the Riverwalk. You can work off any extra calories that you eat.
Yeah, look, absolutely. There's good opportunities to exercise here too.
You make it sound like it's like the perfect place to be. And as somebody who grew up in Hamilton, I don't disagree with you on that. do you think there is, if you had sort of one message for people about the region, what would it be? What would be your sort of big takeaway that people should have about the area?
Is that it is probably an undiscovered city. It truly has some incredible urban experiences, public art, the river itself. We are, one of the few cities in New Zealand that actually has New Zealand's biggest river flowing right through it. And we've got the most extensive gully network of any city in New Zealand, where literally most of our backyards are these beautiful restored gullies that actually attract tui and fantails and kingfishers and all our native birds right in the heart of our city. And we have native bats.
Yeah, the bats are cool down south there. And I found out the other day whitebait, so some of the indigenous species for the country are spawned right there in Fairfield.
Yes, that's right.
Which is the sort of thing that nobody sort of sits down and thinks about.
No, definitely not. So I think, look, we're a city that definitely surprises people. And when we do our, again, perception research with Aucklanders and Wellingtonians and Christchurch residents about what are the three things that they would say about us, is that we are authentic. So a bit of an overused word, but we're kind of real people. We kind of keep it real here. That we are magical because we do have some magic places. And definitely Hamilton Gardens is somewhere that just blows you away. And no matter how many times you go there, you just discover another little secret space. And we're surprising. That actually people realize we are surprisingly good. We are surprisingly humble as people, but our food, people just get blown away by such the great food and the diversity and the quality that we have right on our backyard. So I think, look, we people who live here know we've got a special place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've kind of got used to now more people discovering us, because even more than ever, there is probably more people not from Hamilton living here. It's a very transitional city now, a bit like Wellington. So people come here with new eyes. They discover what we have, and they tell the world about it. So I think, look, it's really changed quite a lot.
Fantastic. Right. Last question for you, which I've been asking everybody. What advice have you got for people to help them get through things like lockdowns and outbreaks and all the stresses that come with that?
My number one thing is save yourself first. I think for all of us, the first national lockdown last year, we were really unsettled, and it was the unknown. We really didn't know. So we were all trying to save our families, our jobs, our sectors, our community, our neighbours. It was just such this raw, emotive unknown that we were dealing with, which really just kind of, I would say everyone was really resilient and just got through it because we were just really tough and we wanted to do something new. With our third lockdown now, I would always say to people, you just need to save ourselves. And what I mean by that is, look after yourself first. We cannot, as New Zealanders, be ready to carry on the next 18 months, which are going to be just as hard, if we are not match fit. So look after yourself, take breaks, read books, connect with people, but just look after yourself first. And then that'll help us all be stronger for the next chapter we've got ahead of us, which, is going to be quite a long road.
Fantastic advice. Thank you very much. Give me 2 ticks and I'll just hit the stop record button. I want to thank Jason again for joining me for this conversation. It's been a really interesting 48 hours in Hamilton at the moment. And just before this interview went out, we found out about the positive cases in Kawhia and Karapiro. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of stress and angst going on down there about what's actually happening and the information that's coming out and how hard it is to navigate that kind of thing. So I really do appreciate the time that Jason put aside for me for today. If you get a chance, check out their website. It's waikatonz.com. Absolutely brilliant stuff on there on what you can do to get out there and explore the region, especially when this is all over and the doors open up again. And I think one of the most important things you can take away from this is to be able to do that, to be able to open those doors. We all need to go out and get vaccinated. So make sure that if you haven't done so already, that you get yourself vaccinated, and that if you get a chance to help somebody else get their shot, take it as well. Don't forget, this episode will be available on podcast as well, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. There'll be links down below in the description for you, as well as a link to the Waikato NZ website. Okay, until next time, I hope you have a great day and enjoy yourself.